So let's see where we have changed from just being a discussion over tech as an enabler to careers and sports, and at least we both have been elite athletes, and we understand that most elite athletes retire with a serious lack in terms of skill gaps, knowledge on what to do, options, along with challenges on networks. So, most athletes would know people just around the sports sector and not know further what to do, what not to do, and it becomes too niche. So, looking at that as a context setting, and also what are the different kinds of careers which are available. While in our prior discussions, we realized that we three have competed, and she has competed 20 years before me. I stand in the middle, and then comes Heena. So we have a chronological order in which there was no tech, there was little tech, and then there is lots of tech. So that is how we'll begin the discussion for the day. So if you look at an average athlete's journey, they start off pretty early. So the athlete would start taking interest into sports in, say, grade 2, 3, 4 onwards. They will at tops reach grade 5, being serious about academics, and then the academic interest goes down and your interest in sports takes over, and you start prioritizing which tournament you have to go to, how much training is needed. So you start having a lack in academics, and by the time you actually get out, so the average age at which the athletes would peak, it would be about say between 23 to 27. So you can safely say 25. And looking at that from that perspective, when the person is 25 and he retires, so post-performance career becomes a challenge. And we have quite a few athletes over here, so they'll be able to relate to it. So when you're out there, now you have to take care of your family. You need to be able to earn an X amount if you're not already employed somewhere. So how does tech and education look at that? And since now we are already looking at edtech beginning to take over, a lot of online platforms are coming through. We will start off with the first discussion and look at a few numbers. So yesterday only I read kind of a report that NSFs have been granted an additional 400 crores, and out of this 10% goes to coach training and 20% to youth programs. So this has recently come out. I read it yesterday. And if you look at PT Usha's academy, which is training about 50 athletes, and Abhinav's sports science initiatives with the ABTP taking over so much, we would want to bring in one more number that says Khelo India currently has 2,781 athletes. 30% of these are from rural areas. Limited network, limited education, limited proficiency over languages. So with that as a context, I would want to start off with Heena. What is the kind of training or platform or education that they can take up to take on to roles as sports referees, administrators, not just coaches? And what is the lowest hanging fruit for these people? And how does tech support this?
So, hello everyone. Good morning. No, good afternoon now. Nice to be here. Thank you, Sanand. Thank you, Geo Institute, for inviting me. I think when we talk about rural India or people, athletes participating in Khelo India kind of initiatives, even in the last panel we talked about it, that people coming from rural backgrounds, the biggest challenge is not tech. It's not lack of coaches. The number one thing is infrastructure. Where do you go to play? Right? You need to have equipment. You're not going to play cricket without a bat, without a ball. You're not going to play badminton without a racket, right? Basic infrastructure is not there. They do have open fields, and that is why you see sports such as kabaddi, wrestling, boxing sometimes picking up in these areas, because these sports, even athletics, these sports do not require a lot of equipment. Open fields are abundant in rural India, so that's how they end up playing these sports. Hockey, football, very little equipment required. I was reading on my way. I was reading about ice hockey team of India women, how they made a natural lake. They used what is naturally available with very little equipment that they could borrow from men's team. They now have a bronze medal at the Asia Cup. So this is the story of rural India. This is the story of 90%, 95%, I think, of the athletes in India who just do it because they want to do it, they love it, they have the motivation to do it, they don't know what else to do. So let me just do this, whatever I can with the infrastructure or the limited equipment available. Now, urban India is a different story. Infrastructure is there. It's the lack of coaches, good quality coaches. Coaching is still a big bottleneck in India. Over here, we are talking about tech, but like we heard Viren say, there are a lot of ABCs that have to happen before tech. We have a big bottleneck when it comes to good quality coaches in India. Everybody is studying in this institute. You guys are doing sports management. Can you tell me what is the course for becoming, say, a shooting coach or a cricket coach or a football coach? None. Absolutely none. I mean, I can declare myself, I keep telling Sanand, I can declare myself a swimming coach, right? If people are willing to pay me to learn whatever swimming I know, I'm a coach. But who is to tell that I know this level of coaching versus this person? And that is another bottleneck, because there are no degrees or no formal education given for coaches. Poor people cannot go and charge high salaries also, because वो PT teacher ही है. Everybody knows a PT teacher. PT teacher is like a universal teacher who chips in for all the school programs also, all the school drama debates भी वही organize करता है.
Becomes the discipline in charge.
Yeah. जो किसी की नहीं सुनेंगे वो PT teacher के पास जाएंगे. That's the story of our nation. And because they don't have formal education, not just the athletes, it's the story of coaches also. Because they do not have formal education, they cannot charge high. And because they cannot charge high, this ecosystem becomes unsustainable for educated youth. They don't want to get into sports because what will I do after this? Like you said, what will I, even if I become a coach, how do I charge a good amount for my skill that I've developed since 20 years? Right? So there has to be a system in place where we stop talking about just athletes. Right? The whole ecosystem. Then athlete has 10 people around him. There's a coach, there's a physio, there's an SNC, there's a manager, there's the federation. Let's make everybody healthy so that they produce healthy athletes. Healthy in the sense, athletes who are winning medals for us. So the whole ecosystem has to evolve. Khelo India, I'm sorry to say, but it's just focused on athletes. Very little focus on infrastructure in rural areas. Very little focus on coaches. So the sad truth about India is, where there's a coach, there's not infrastructure. Where there's infrastructure, there's no coach.
Yeah.
The athletes are a lot. So that's what I would say about that.
Preeti, what's your thought on this?
Once again, thank you very much for having me here. I kind of agree with Heena that the base and the ecosystem needs a lot of help. Having said that, coming to AI, it is useful in its own way. Small, it's a start. And this came into being, as was mentioned, I work with Reliance Foundation. and we do a lot of grassroots work. And thereby, we do a lot of work with schools and PT teachers. So it was during COVID that we ourselves realized that the kids were calling us, the coaches were calling us, that we are stuck in the house, we have nothing to do, help. Some of them were, the first lot that were cut out from their schools, and they were, because they're part-time employees, were the PT teachers. The first lot of teachers that were removed from the school billing fee was the PT teacher, because he was a contract, not a full-time employee. So we, Reliance Foundation, they kept calling us and saying, what can you do for us? And we started online education of athletes, of coaches, and even in some points of referees. And this is where we learned, and this is where I learned, because I come, like we said, from a generation where there was no tech. And in my team, actually, many of them are here, they are laughing, because when it comes to tech, I'm the least qualified. And I'm always asking them even to how to do my WhatsApp I'm not being able to do it, or I'm sending something wrong. I send crazy messages to all of them. They all like, ma'am, you've sent this to us. But it opened my eyes that all of us were sitting, stuck in our rooms and our homes across the country, including the educator who was stuck in Bombay, the person coordinating, the person putting together the entire presentation and the entire syllabus for us. We were all sitting in our various rooms across the country, and it was through digital help that we were able to actually reach out to coaches, PE teachers, and it worked as an enabler, and athletes. We had different segments and athletes. So that was a real eye opener for me. And there were a lot of coach. I was telling somebody last night that there was one coach from Bangalore, from a very elite school, and after we had 3 levels, so you had to complete attending a certain amount of hours of one level so that you had that knowledge to go to the next level. And once you completed that, we had a 3rd level. So by the end of the 3rd level, there was this one person who, right through all segments, was very, very vocal, asking lots of questions. A lot of our coaches don't even talk because they're shy, and they don't want to be seen. So we made it a point that we called out the coach, told him, put on your camera and talk to us. We want you to talk, introduce yourself, talk to us, tell us about. So by the 3rd segment, everyone across the country became friends, because they were these different. And this gentleman said to us, he kept saying, thank you so much, thank you so much. So we said, no, we're glad that you took part, and and he's a very good coach, by the way. And then he tells us, he says, I'm illiterate. I do not know how to read or write. So what I have learned through this program has been completely amazing. It's been an amazing experience for me. And he is in one of the elite schools of Bangalore as a coach. Now he's telling you that he can't read or write. So that is our state of our coaches in many places. And that's where Heena is coming from. So while we're even talking about tech, we have a long way to go. Firstly, our athletes, the younger lot, will take to tech very quickly because they come from a tech generation. But their coaches today, who, let's say the coaches are in the age group of 30 onwards, they are not so comfortable with tech, especially if you come from the background that they come from. And if you're older, in my generation, then you're like, no, bilkul nahi. I'm too old, I don't have to learn how to use it. They're not even, there's that 0.5% that might agree. So yes, tech is important, tech is an enabler. We are far behind. I see it as very useful and something that we must try and input, but we need to get the basics correct first. Because if you don't get the basics correct, you're not going to be able to use the tech the way you want to use tech. It'll be there. But if you, I was just telling, if you have a shooter trying to read data analysis of a football data analysis, he's not going to be able to point out what you want from it. A shooter needs to read the data analysis for a shooter. A footballer can probably switch between hockey and football because there's some kind of, the games are somewhat the same as a team sport. But that's where so many areas are open for students and athletes who come and their careers, there are loads of careers. My area of work, I would have loved to wear an India cap, but in my time, sport was not an option. So by the time I was 21, I made it to one Asian game for golf camp, but that was it. That was also, I started playing only after college, and I gave myself 2 years. I got to the camp but didn't make the team. So it's a dream for me to wear India cap, complete dream. So my passion has led me to sport. It was, it has been, we first need a platform. We don't have a national platform. In the old days, we had one federation have this final, this national, that national, and it happened when and if on the whim and fancy of that federation. Today, the Khelo India, while I'm not a great fan of the Khelo India, the one point I bring, it brings everybody onto one platform. At least it's there. Okay, before there was nothing, at least it's there. It has a lot of minuses to it, but it has a lot of cons. And in a country that has nothing right now, I would rather have it than not have it, right? So for me, technology is important, but like you, to use technology, you need to have the know-how. The people need to know how to use technology, otherwise it can go wrong. It can go very wrong. So yes, it is important, but as usual, our base, we need a strong foundation and build on. And India is in that part of, is in that phase right now where, see, we can create technology in our country. We are creating technology for the world. You look at any animation film and you'll see loads of Indian names at the end. Why? Because digitally they are creators. We are creators. So I think we are okay in that space. But at the lower space where that technology needs to be used, we need to educate people how to use technology, why the need of technology is required. Because a lot of people are going to say, we don't need it. We don't need it. We managed so many years without it. Why do we need it now? So all that acceptance of technology, the use, the pros, the cons, all needs to be explained. And with that, then there's no holding back. The rest of the world is there to show you how technology helps. So that's my say.
Sure. So you were referencing our conversation from last evening where I said, okay, when the coach is leaving academics, he does not know moment of inertia, friction, Newton's laws of motion, and the entire coaching is based on physics. So how do we deal with it? So that was the conversation that you were referencing to. But
Correct.
I'll come to Aarushi. Since you're the odd one out, you said. So, on a little curveball, our discussion had focused around government policies, right? You spoke about NEP bringing physical education and sports more into the light. So, the same question, where rural athletes, how do they transition into non-coaching roles, more to do with referees, administration, and the rest? How do you look at that from your perspective?
So I'm not as intelligent as everyone here in the room because I'm not a sports person. In fact, the only thing that I do is shoot emails at the middle of the night, and Anand got the better of it last night at 1 a.m. when I sent him my question, and he woke up in the morning. I was like, oh, I need to deal with this.
The truth is, she's more intelligent than
Yes,
us, which is
absolutely.
why she's a lawyer and we're in sport.
No, but the other side is that sports personalities are very resilient, right? And they can shatter any glass ceiling, which is why you can do anything that you like. The fact that you have a lawyer sitting in a room full of sports personalities shows that there are so many opportunities available. And lawyers and doctors are the gray the hair, the better it is, right? So no option is off the table. They're pretty much on the table, right? And I don't think you need to look far and wide, but just talking about sports policy, I'm going to be a little bit of a beacon of hope here. Things have to evolve to make sure that you have employment available, that it is a sustainable lifestyle, right? And for that, just the government cannot do something, just private players cannot do something. Participation has to come from all corners. So, just very briefly talking about it, after many years in the making, India got a national education policy in the year 2020. We're doing the fifth year now. Amongst many things, it spoke about the fact that, at the basic education level, education needs to be holistic. For the first time, they have emphasized on sports to be an integral part of our teaching, our learning, how our curriculums need to be evolved. Sadly, so while we have had great sports personalities, we've never really focused on sports as a career option or as a viable option. It is a byproduct because you're good at it, and after that, you move on and transition to do maybe something else in life because now it's not a sustainable livelihood option. Things are changing from that level where they're saying, let's change our curriculums. Let's use technology in schools. Let's use it as a holistic learning method. So, the generation of tomorrow that we see now are now tuned to watch sports. They're tuned to understand sports. They're also playing sports because it's part of their curriculum in general. So now there's a shift. The second thing is there are things that government has been doing. May not be enough, but let's give them a break. They have too many things to do, right, at the end of the day. But overall, if you consider on a year on year basis, our spends towards sports in the financial budget allocation have gone up. And then, when you say 2000 odd crores or 400 crores, that's not a small amount of money. I know we are a large nation, but from a spend perspective, that's going up. The third thing that's happening for you is private participation that is coming in. So at one juncture, sports was a very limited sort of a thing. The government would organize a sport. At best, they will say, okay, these players can go up represent overseas. We will have teams in India. You'll have a match where some people will buy tickets and see it. That's not the case anymore. Now you're pretty much in the limelight, and it's not just cricket. We're talking about all kind of sports who are being taken to mainstream. There is a spotlight on the sports personalities. So therefore, there is money that is flowing in. With that, you have funds who are coming in. You have private investors who are coming in. You have film stars. You have famous personalities who are buying teams. And all of this is basically glamorizing the sports industry as we see today. So there is a full ecosystem that is developing. Now, only when an ecosystem develops, then you can think about making money out of it, right? And when I consider sports as an option, I know that athletes have a career, coaches have a career, but think of all the allied things that are developing along with sports as an industry. This building was built, so I'm sure that there are people who worked to make this institute, right? You have equipments being manufactured, you have merchandise being sold, you have mental therapies that are being done, you have so many allied industries. Sports, as one enabler, is picking all of that up and creating those opportunities. So, the flip side of the story is that I understand that rural India may not be doing well, but maybe if we look 20 years ahead of our time, things are looking in the right direction because there is a focus. The fact that all of us are here sitting in the room means that we are conscious of that fact and we're going to address the situation in our own little ways. But I never heard of a sports lawyer many years ago. I became one by default. That's a different story. But I'm sure many such opportunities will come to each one of you when you find your way.
Thank you. Um, Preeti, I'll want to field the next question to you. So, if you look at demographics, approximately 70 to 75% Indian athletes retire by 25. And you're already aware of the reset training program, and which trains about 1,000 athletes annually. So, how do athletes who are retiring early due to injuries and other challenges can find new purpose in careers like physiotherapy, athlete or player management, with education and tech?
So, coming in answer to your question, really, when an athlete's career is finished or is finishing, or it's been injury prone, so they have to stop playing. Um, in today's world, you can actually even do courses in sports management online. So that is available to them. There are courses in sports management available in India now, which my time was not available. You have something like G Institute in India now, which didn't happen before.
Sure.
They have access to these places and getting knowledge of these places. I think in the old days, now you just go Uncle Google and they will tell you where all you can go. And you then have access to even speak to these people. So there is a pipeline, there is a pathway which was not there before. And I think AI has helped, and digital has helped so much in that space, in putting out information to these people. And quite honestly, if you come from a sports background, there are loads of areas, as you're saying, it enables a lot of different occupations around it. You don't have to become a coach, you don't have to become a referee. You can become me, an implementator. You can become you, an entrepreneur in the business. You can become the videographer behind the camera. You can, I mean, there's so much available in the space. You can become, if you're very clever and you have the educational background, you want to do architecture. Today I think one of the biggest problems is architectures of stadiums. They're making stadiums very badly. They don't know the athlete spaces, so they just say, acha, change room hona chahiye, let's put change rooms here. They don't know about ingress, egress, how security. They don't have any idea of all that. So there's loads of spaces that an athlete could.
I'll interject on that point so that you can add more. Tell us a little about the Balewadi facility that you were talking about, and Hina is already training there.
Okay, so I happened to be in Balewadi. This is about 2014-15, I think it was. And I was first looking after FC Pune City as the head of implementation. So I was running the football, the ISL. Right after that, I happened to be there for Pro Kabaddi because we were using one of the indoor stadium for Pro Kabaddi. So when the Pro Kabaddi happened, we filled up the water because they don't have water. So you have to bring in tankers to fill it up. So we filled it up. But by the time we started using the water in the indoor stadium, we found that there was no water, but we'd filled up the tanks. I mean, huge amounts of water. Yes. What had happened? They have one tank. No, they have one tank that facilitates all three of their stadiums: their boxing, their football, and the kabaddi. So very clever. As soon as the money, the water is put in, the guys started cleaning the football and the boxing and everything. By the time us came for pro kabaddi in the evening, there was no water. So there we were running around trying again to get trucks to fill up water. And unfortunately, in the football they'd stolen all the taps and the, because for the ISL they had put in very fancy taps. Somebody had stolen all the taps and the showers. So the water was flowing freely in the football, and we had no water left in the cupboard. So this is where. And more recently in Meghalaya, I went. They put a beautiful football stadium outside in the Jaintia Hills called Vandajer, and unbelievable. We just wanted to use the dressing rooms and the ground, but to run that we had to put on the electricity for the entire stadium. So we had to fill up genset to facilitate the entire stadium. So we didn't need it. So it's important an architect who puts it thinks of the spaces. The sports space, you can use one genset for the sports space. You need one genset for the stadium where the seating is. So that's where the architect and the electricians all need to come into play. And it doesn't happen in India. I've built and seen so many stadiums, from Chinnaswamy to Dhyan Chand. All of these stadiums have come up in front of me. And I tell you, Dhyan Chand, I've got to tell you the funniest. World Cup hockey was starting. We were against time because it was the showcase event. Based on this, the Commonwealth Games was going to come to us, and the whole world was watching us. So the stadium came up, and then we had been waiting for a long time to move into the stadium, into office. The day we got in, we all went in, and we all so happy, beautiful stadium, lovely office space. We all plugged our laptops in. No lights, but the light was on. No power. To get their completion certificate, they put in the plug face, but there was no wiring. Right? So that's the stories that I have lots of stories, but coming to that is very important for me. The architect for a sports stadium needs to understand sports, needs to understand spaces. And when they were building the Odisha hockey stadium, when I went in to check it, because we told we told them that we would hold the Hockey India League final in Odisha. So they said, come and see the stadium. So I went there with the star with the broadcasters. We went there, and I have to tell you, it was too funny because the players were coming out of the dressing room into public space. not onto the field. There was no entry for them to get onto the field. They were going out into the public space and then coming around the public space onto the field. So I had to tell them to break walls and close doors and work that. And Star, they were lucky we got there because Star, we had the Star team with us who told them where to lay their cables. Where then later on they just plug in, plug out. Why do you think that stadium now hosts so many World Cups? Because everything was in place. We were lucky that those architects very open to inputs and they got it right. And so once you have a facility like that, that facility will make money for you. It will bring in the money because it is made. If you make a very good shooting facility in India today, they will come. They will come. Everyone will come. If you cricket will come because now the facilities are there, right? Hockey has been coming. Shooting will come. Archery is easier, but hopefully they will come. So I think once you get your facilities the correct way and build them the right way, you will bring in the sport. So like I was saying, coming back to it, AI can help in putting out the right information of what is available to you. It can give you a head start with letting you know you can do a little bit using digital and AI. But in the end, for me, you need to have the practical experience. So it's an enabler, but it's not always the answer. I'll come back to that each time because for me, I think tech is fantastic. Tech needs to be used, but in the end, it's what you're built of and what gets put out that is important.
So, building on to what you just spoke about infra, I would ask Hina. Now, I've been trying to advocate for something as an Indian sports service, pretty much on the line of an Indian administrative service, foreign service, and the rest. So, how does a service like that change the entire thought process of Indian sports careers, in your opinion? Administrator who has been an athlete or who is trained not to, so he is not served out one tenure at electricity department, one at PWD, one at medical. He is built only for sports, nothing else.
I think that would be a great idea because the moment I meet anybody who has ever played sports, I can make out they are optimistic, they are solution focused, they do not waste time, they love working fast, and they are always wanting to get the best team on board. What can you do? What can you do? What can you do? They are really enablers, good leaders. So if we can have people in the higher ups who have been sportsmen themselves, who have been athletes themselves, to make the changes in the rules and make the right kind of laws, laws that enable sports ecosystem to grow at every front. I think that would be the way to go. That's a good suggestion. And one thing I wanted to add before I actually answer yours was I also have a story for a bad infrastructure. I think mine is a little funny one because in shooting, have you ever seen rifle shooters? They wear this kit which is made of a very thick canvas, so you are really walking like a robot with shoes which are flat bottomed and they don't even bend when you walk. So they're really like robots. They can't walk much. So if you push a rifle shooter and he falls on his back, he will just keep crawling like a cockroach and he can never never come up. So that's how handicapped they are. So but in order to change, they need changing rooms, right? And they cannot walk far. So the changing rooms in shooting are usually far off, and pistol shooters can just walk here and there, nobody complains. So they picked up a bad habit. They started changing right then and there. They started changing in the field of play. So to the extent that even when the changing rooms were close by, they stopped going in. And ISSF had to make a rule that changing clothes is not allowed on the field of play. And so there was a joke between the shooters that you anyway cry about spectators not being there, let them change clothes. Probably we'll get some spectators. So that's a funny story coming from shooting. That yeah, they're not made well. The architects, they just tick boxes. You got this space, you got this space, you got this space. Now figure out. Just move around and figure it out. That's not how it happens. I wish they get athletes on board. I wish they get federations on board. The managers, the administrators, everybody should be on board to tell them exactly what they need, because we do spend crores and crores of rupees, and even a lot of facilities built during the Commonwealth Games had a problem. I, as an athlete, have had this problem every time I went for the opening ceremony. We never got chairs. Like, we never got chairs. Imagine standing on your feet for 4 hours, and the next day is your match. I didn't go to the opening ceremony of the London Olympic Games, or even for Rio Games, because I knew there were not going to be chairs. And I was so happy when I saw that, yes, they didn't get any chairs to sit. Have you ever seen athletes like when they walk? Do you know what happens behind the scene? We are made to stand for so long, just standing and waiting कि आपका अभी turn आएगा. So sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. We are literally standing, and then we do the march past, and then we are standing again. So it's really a stand marathon that day. Like, very few athletes want to go. So these are all little things that you can do, but nobody does. Yes.
So, Aarushi, since I asked her about an administrative career for sports people, uh, can you probably throw a light on if there could be a lateral entry scheme to start off with, and then a scaffolded full term that could be introduced? So we already have young professionals being introduced into NSFs, right? So building something on those lines.
Yeah, so I think these are matter of policies. They're matter of advocacy. The plan that you mooted right now seems like a very good plan, but laws don't change overnight. In fact, the people who are making laws sometimes don't even know that there is a need to make that law, or we have to make that change. Now, it is sometimes for the industry to come together and say, we need this, and therefore there is a lacuna. Can we fill it? This is the plan. If we do this, we are going to achieve something out of it, and these are the achievables. So if there is a real need, which I hear there is a real need, because as common people we only see the ceremony on screen, and we are very comfortable, right, in our houses. We are sitting on our sofas, on our ACs, most of the time munching popcorns, or sometimes it's just a party, right? It's an opening ceremony night. Let's call friends over. So we never know the other side of the story. Imagine that there are so many who don't even know that this is a real problem. So can we create something out of it? Can we even moot it there? I'm sure you have mooted it on various levels, but collective voice has a very different power attached to it. So if there is something to be done, I'm sure that it will take its time, but maybe there's an opportunity. I mean, look at most of our laws. I'll give data protection as an example, and I'll probably speak about it also slightly later whenever the question arises. Data protection and data privacy, it's a fundamental right. The fact that I own my data, I need to consent how to use my data. But what happens everywhere you go? I know when we came here, Geo Institute did take our consent when they were taking our pictures. But go to any building today, go to any mall today, they'll take your data as if it is a matter of right to collect that data. How is that data used? Where is it going? Where are your photographs used? You have absolutely no idea. But at some juncture, there was a policy effort made that we need to do this. And there is a need for it. Eventually, the Supreme Court realized it, and then we now potentially have a law on the anvil. Similarly, for sexual harassment on workplace, right? That's a law that got made, and eventually, even for sports complexes, tournament sites, etc., directives were given that you need to have committees and policies in place to take care of safety requirements. So it doesn't happen. We need to create a momentum, a need, build a case, and then things do fall into place.
So, on a follow up, how important is it for an athlete to know their digital rights their rights in today's world? Because they are being filmed, they are being put on Instagram, they are literally being taken up anywhere, like you just mentioned.
Yeah. So I see rights are integral to every person. not just athletes, but in the context of athletes or any famous personality, rights take a very different sort of a manifestation altogether. You have a personality which is outward looking, which is your public facing personality. You need to know what rights you have, only then can you exploit the rights. For example, if you're okay with anyone coming taking a picture of you and putting it next to an ad and you're doing nothing about it, that's a choice you're making. But you need to know that you have a right to stop them, like we have seen in the previous few instances, especially during the Olympics, when athletes have come around to say, no, you can't use my picture because it's sort of giving an impression that I'm endorsing, which is not the case. So, first, and the most important thing is understand that what is the right that you have. That knowledge is very important. Even our law says that not knowing your law is not an offense. You need to know that. Secondly, what do you do out of it? Today's world is a very outward facing world. Your social media is a powerful tool. You know, you have followers, your brand endorsements come from that, your sponsorship comes from that. How you project yourself makes a lot of difference. So this is where all your rights sort of play in. Especially in the digital world, we have seen that the pictures have gotten changed into NFTs at some juncture, which was a very, very big trend at some point in time. Metaverse was a big word at some juncture. You know, taking your personalities, making your digital twins. Now, and I'll just give a parallel example. When it happened in the film industry, you know, actors were very well aware of their rights over a period of time. They knew exactly what they're assigning, that I'm a character, I'm playing that character, it's part of the film. But anything other than that is not something that I'm putting it out there. With AI coming in, AI models are now using, you know, they're studying what you do on a public forum and they can create your voice modulation, they can create your personalities. And we have actors like Anil Kapoor, Arijit Singh, and all who have gone to court and sought enforcements and saying, no, you can't because it's part of my personality. I'm supposed to exploit it. So that's very important. The third element of it is your private part or your private life of it. That's where privacy element of it comes in. Your privacy in your in your private space, your privacy with your family. That's where you also have a right to say no, and that right is available to any personality, even though you are a public facing personality. So I think, you know, your rights as an individual in terms of where you are, whether a workplace, whether you are in your private space, what you can do about it, how you can exploit it, how you can stop others from exploiting it, is very important for you to take your persona to to the next level.
Uh, Preeti, I would just want to refer to what you were saying as we were getting out of the building last evening. You said, I would want people to know that they could become me as a career, right? And people can't. People don't know how to. So I had framed the question for that, that many athletes do not get to have an opportunity to become administrators, tournament directors, and the rest because they lack academic engagement early on in their lives and they do not have enough academic understanding on how to do things. So, with Reliance Foundation's grassroots works, how can sports organizations and school build stronger connections to guide athletes into these roles? With tech as a tool, like you explained, you could sit in one place.
Correct. So, coming back to the school level and even our own event, we go to the back and beyond where not many people go. The fact that we run our tournament in a certain way, again, it's we create subsidiary employment and people learn how to, because we run our tournament, it's a junior ISL. How we run our ISL, if you come to any of our tournaments, even though it's an inter-school or an inter-academy event, you will find that we run it as professionally as we would run an ISL.
The SOPs are the same.
All the same.
Sure.
We have ambulances, physios, we do not start a game till an ambulance is there. So, everything is run at a professional level. So we have learned through our own teams. There have been youngsters who came as ball boys who are today are the venue managers. They didn't have the education. Some of them have learned how to use Excel sheets. That's the furthest they have gone. And some of them have become coaches with us. It's a very small. India is so big and so much needs to be done. It's what we are doing is a grain of sand, quite honestly. But it happens and it can be done. So Yes, so that's how it has to happen, is that number one, there needs to be a platform where they can learn. You don't always have to be educated. In my line of work, you don't have to be educated to a very high degree, right? To come as far as a venue manager, you just need to know how to run a venue. For that, you really don't need the plus and minuses of an education. To become a tournament director, yes, you do, because then you need to understand rules, you need to understand the game, plus, 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 plus. But for many from who come from a ball boy perspective, if they can even get to being a venue manager or a manager of the event, that itself is a huge climb. But once again, platforms are required. So while we can create as many as we can, you still need that platform. And for that, the sport ecosystem has to grow so that there are more sporting events, so that they require the people that. So right now, I say in this country, about 7 years ago we saw a boom, 7 to 8 years ago, just before COVID, right, when Commonwealth Games, all that started coming in, India saw a boom in the sports arena, right, and a lot of sports students were required, and we had none, quite honestly. Many who started with me um, have not got that much education, but today they're all in quite senior positions. Quite senior position. They all had just, some of them only school, some of them might have picked up a BA, some of them have insisted they've picked up a BA, even if it's done through open school, which is,
Sure.
again, I said just pick it up because you're going to need it later, because people are going to come in. Today, on an average, in a month, I must be getting 7 or 8 different people saying, my son, and people from my background saying, oh, my son is studying sports management, or he's done sports management, or she's done sports management. 7, 10 years ago, you wouldn't have found this. But today, what is the problem is that we don't have that many areas for these kids to go into. So we need to build the the sporting platform has to start from the bottom, and the government has to come in. This country cannot do it without the government. And like Viren was saying, it has to become a central issue, because as a state issue, it's a pluck and pick,
Sure.
right? So my state of Meghalaya didn't do very much in sport, but because they've got the national games now, suddenly they're waking up, which is a good thing. But it shouldn't need to be till the national games comes to your state,
Sure.
right? And then when the national games go, no one's thinking about how to sustain those facilities, or how to build them now so that they are sustainable and they're used by the local people for whatever reason thereafter. So that's what happened with our stadiums. They make these beautiful stadiums, they're used, and then they just left standing because they can't be used. Like you say, to run one thing, you have to put on the whole lot. So it costs a lot of money. And no one has that kind of petty change. It's like, it's not petty change. No one has it. So again, the ecosystem has to grow. We have to become more of a sporting nation. The government has to come in. Private companies have to come in. We have to do it holding hands. There's no one person who can do it. And those who love sport, give. Because right now, it's not about taking from sport. Give. If even at a lower level, if there's a little kid in your colony who wants to play, facilitate him. Whatever. If somebody wants a football, you can afford to give the kid a football, give. Because we need to grow the ecosystem. And to hear the voices, you need the voices. So you grow your ecosystem, you will get the voices, and it'll grow. It can't be just on this one-off thing that we are getting this, so let's do it because it's a matter of ego. Karte hain, they'll do it. It's the same people. So I was in Meghalaya, I was talking to a group of people saying, start the work now, start educating the locals on the various jobs that are required at that level. So that not that others, what happens? One national game is held, everybody from the whole country goes there, they all get paid, do their job, and they move away. The same lot of people, right? Then if the national games are held in another state, the same lot of people go to the other place. Now in our country again, everyone is closed. They all want it to themselves. It's not going to grow. We can't be that crab in the basket. We need to be much more open hearted about it. And it has to start with us. How we do it. We ourselves should always upgrade whoever's working with us, should always push even the athlete you're competing with. Yeah, you're in competition, but never push them down. Come on, compete. I'm still better than you. Come on, keep coming. You keep coming at me. I'm going to keep getting at you. You will improve yourself. You will improve that person, and you will create that down the line
Sure.
of being the best.
Sure.
So the ecosystem is, again,
The key to it.
key to it.
Very
And
astute.
help to create the ecosystem.
Sure.
It has to come from everywhere. You can't just say government, you can't just say private companies. Everybody you can't just say athletes, and all of us in this room, the kids who are sitting at the back need to be thinking forward. I mean, in many ways, even Prashant, who was here, his idea of sport, what is a brilliant one. And it has really enabled a lot of, even in my own event, it took out money that we were using on just producing, is now saved and actually put, members of my team over here will tell you, our motto on the implementation side is money on the field. All the money, because we are in a CSR business, money is not going to be spent anywhere. It has got to be spent on the field, not on the peripheries. Spend it on the field as much as possible. So Spot what allowed us to do that. Otherwise, taking production, of course, it minus the production guys.
Sure.
But it created a lot more. And where we wanted the money to go, it's being able to go there. So that's very important.
Heena, our student Shubham from the sports management program had a query about what tech intervention would you have wanted during your peak years, which wasn't available back then?
As an athlete, I was very involved in data collection and data analytics. Whatever little I could do with my own technique, certain markers that I had, that if I improve these markers, I could see an improvement in my performance. But at that time, AI was not there, so everything had to be done by hand. Initially, because we used to write diaries, that was the habit everyone in my team had. So we just started writing and collecting data about these few points. And it made sense. Then we just kept writing and writing. Then came Excel. We thought, okay, let's do Excel. Sadly, the one thing I wish shooting world body does, ISSF does, is allowing us to use wearables during competitions. They don't allow us. The rules says nothing that transmits.
No tech on the field of play.
No tech, which is sort of absurd in today's world. And on one side you're crying, we don't get enough spectators. Let's do this. Let's do that. But on the other side, if you're not going to show how the heart rate variation happens for a shooter, or how the aiming process happened on the target, because what you see is just like me standing as a statue. So if you don't show these kind of things, they will not attract anybody. And with now the shooting league coming, I hope they have addressed these issues. So for me, coming back to the question, I wish there was AI during that time. Because I had the right kind of markers, and they would always show, if I had them in place, they would always lead to better performance. But the job of tracking them was done by my coach, a human, and he could only tell me when I have gone off the track. But an AI maybe could have at that time helped me to prevent it, start picking up early signs. And maybe the AI would have helped me pick up on other markers who had better correlation to my performance. For example, I only used a very simple marker, the timing that I took, because shooting is not like hockey, like Viren was saying, where you have to be unpredictable and you don't have to let your opponents guess what you're about to do. Shooting is exactly copy paste. It is like if you want to be a good shooter, you need to be like a robot, doing the same thing, exactly same, 60 times, and then in the finals 24 times. That's it. So it's easy to track. So the moment there's a variation, so I picked up the time variation. I realized that when I'm a little jittery, when I'm thinking too much, the timing that I took for preparation was off by, say, 2 seconds. Or even 1 second. So if I had taken exactly 12 seconds, I was perfect. And exactly 5 to 6 seconds for the shot, I was good. And 4 to 5 seconds for follow through, good. Between the shots, 50 seconds, good. If my timing was shorter, but I was shooting better, the coach realized I was aggressive. And I I would get aggressive. You know, when you're in the zone, you would get aggressive. But the problem was when my preparation time increased, the shot time is still there. In 2, 3 shots, he would see bad shots coming in because I'm thinking too much. So these kind of things. This is a very small thing, and we started monitoring it on Excel, and I saw a lot of correlation. I used to wear biofeedback sensors on my fingers, the skin conductance, the temperature, and HRV, and another strap on my abdomen for abdominal breathing. So we used to track those, and we realized that they were a little better than EEG training because these were transferable on the field of play. I could monitor, even today I can like put a hand on my pulse and I can monitor and I can tell what level makes me comfortable, what kind of breathing would bring that level of heart rate. So, but it took a lot of time. So the tech was there, mind you, so the technology was there, but I had the right kind of person to pick up the right markers. Right? Otherwise, okay, I give you heart rate, but what are you going to do with that? What is the right level? What's the wrong level? You don't know. And in my case, we found out that if I do exactly 6 breaths a minute, I was in a better situation versus what all medical journals told me as a medical student, 15 to 20 breaths a minute. No. For me, it was 6 breaths. And I was very happy. One day I was in the gym and I was doing some sit ups, and my physio came to me and she said, I was looking at your belly, you're still doing 6 breaths a minute. That's amazing. That even without the technology, you've picked up this habit of 6 breaths a minute. So you technology is there, but you have to put in the hard work. You have to do the right kind of work first of all. Sadly, tech companies are not asking them. आप हमको बताइए कि आपको क्या चाहिए. Nobody asks them, and then make the technology which has a pull in the market already. I have noticed that tech people pick up one technology from say football, because football is of course the richest sport, and they say, okay, where can I cross sell it? Okay, we can do this, we can do this. I've seen that coach struggle with this. So they get a technology which was supposed to have a very targeted answer for a certain sport, and they make it a universal answer for every other sport, and then they say the elite athletes are not using it. Right? I mean, who asks elite athletes, what do you want? And who asks elite coaches, like, what do you want? Okay, let us come back to you and see if we can do something about it. So that way, you are answering the question that already exists.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, since we are running out on time, uh, I just have one question from Kalyan for Aarushi. So, he says, Kalyan, are you here?
I'm
Yeah.
here.
Would you want to ask it?
No, go ahead. Feel free.
So, he says your work often requires you to create legal maps for territories that don't fully exist. Looking at the intersection of sports and emerging tech like metaverse, we are approaching a complex new frontier for what an athlete even is today. How do you define an athlete today? So the question is, as we move deeper into an era of digital twins, an athlete's identity would be fractured into their physical self and the data-driven simulations. From a legal standpoint, who owns the IP of a digital athlete's performance? And what new legal frameworks are urgently needed to govern these digital athletic identities?
Sure, very interesting question. Going back to
We'll
what
keep it
very,
brief.
very brief. So, to answer very briefly, I don't think laws need to change or they should change as often as we might think. Laws are supposed to be enablers, they are basic guardrail principles. It is an application of the law that matters. Now, when you look at metaverse or any emerging technology and the concept of digital twin, it's not one marker like you say, right? There are multiple facets to it. One is it's my manifestation of personality which has gone into the digital world. So nobody can own my personality but me. But can I give someone the right to create, say, a caricature of me, or maybe make an image of me or a photograph of me? Yes, I can. Whether I give them the right in proper sense, in the sense only you can do it and you are exclusive to do it, or I say I'm giving you a limited purpose license to do it, those are still commercial considerations, which goes back to the question of rights. If you don't know what your rights are, you will end up signing any piece of paper and giving your will away. But if you know what you want to do, you will keep it back. Secondly, even in terms of your data, in terms of your performance metrics, in terms of your look and feel, in terms of anything that you do, for example, under our copyright law, there is a construct of moral rights, and they exist for performers as well. That if I don't like what you're doing, which is in the construct of distortion, then I do have the right to say no, and I can stop you. Sometimes authors, lyricists, or and the like tend to use it. So, for example, if I've given you the right to use my personality in a digital world, but I'm not okay with what you're doing with my personality, you're changing the interesting features of my personality, I can reserve rights under my contract and under my law. So that's also a possibility. Secondly, but at the same time, I can give you the right to create or build more onto the personality. Every signature move that I have, like you said, 6 breaths a minute, is a matter of a right that, if you create my digital twin, these are the parameters that you have to, on a very basic, work with. If not, you're just taking my picture and then you have to put all the disclaimers. So this is a very, very complex area of law. It's not a question of who owns what. You will never part away with your personality, but you can definitely give your rights. Whether how you give it is where your commercial exploitations come in.
Thank you so much.